What's your name, brother?
Cinco.
What chapter are you about of?
Sin City.
You've been around how long now?
7 years.
7 years.
Coming up.
Now, the crazy thing about this interview, you guys know I've been able to do some of them myself, but it turns out me and this brother actually have some history together. So as we're sitting here talking, it turned out we grew up in the same neighborhood.
That's
I ended up moving to that neighborhood later, but you grew up in LA.
That's right.
And were you into motorcycles early or anything like that?
Not until my early 20s that
Really?
I started getting into the motorcycle scene.
Do you remember your first bike?
My first bike was a Honda 500 Interceptor.
The red, white, and blue one.
That's right.
The red, white, and
That's
blue
right,
one.
yeah.
Were you caught up in the street stuff?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know the answer, but you guys don't. So, what age do you think you started, experiencing the streets?
At about 9.
No shit.
Yeah. As soon as I moved into South Central LA.
And you saw what was past that porch, as they say.
That's right.
The documentary is called Life of a One Percenter. Not about me, not about you, just the life of. What drew you to be in the family you're in? I hate the word club. I hate it with a passion. What drew you to be in the family that you're in?
I can tell you is this club offered me a great deal of respect. They showed me love. They showed me loyalty. And at the same time, not just that, but there was a lot of people that I can, or brothers now, that I can actually relate to. Whether it's from the streets, motorcycles, or just in generally.
Now, I need to stop for a second and issue probably the most important thing of this documentary. I've been working on it 3 months. It took me 5 minutes to ask Universal would they put it out, and it took them 5 seconds to say yes. I need you to know, I said it off camera, I'm saying it again, thank you, because this is unheard of. It's unheard of. Why did you, and I know the powers that be, but I approached you. I didn't approach anybody else. We just clicked. What made you want to sit down and do this?
I'm looking to show a positive outlook as to how people interpret what a one percenter is. And I want them to understand and see that we're just like anyone else. We have families, we have jobs, and we do the 9 to 5. So this is something for me to be able to get a message out to the public, in a sense, and also law enforcement as well, and anyone else that's listening, for them to actually see that we are not criminal enterprise. We're not a gang. We're a bunch of guys that are loyal to each other, respect each other, love one another, which becomes family in the end. That's what I'm about.
Do you ever find it perplexed that you can join the military, go kill? You can go become a cop, go kill. You join a motorcycle club, and it's got nothing to do with killing. But let's say 2 men get into a fight, somebody's got to lose that fight.
That's right.
Does it bother you that immediately they think that's your only ulterior motive? That you got to be the bigger, badder one. How do you deal with that when someone thinks that's all your family is about?
Our family is not about that. Our family will protect one another. Our brothers come together, and if there's a brother in need, we're going to be there for them, regardless. Whether it's family-wise, whether it's helping them get through an addiction. And that's what I see with this club. This club, I've seen brothers fall off the band, and literally, like, we've brought them back. And I can personally say for myself, I've dealt with a few brothers that way, where they were really in a bad situation, and we've helped them out and bring them back out. This club, I've seen brothers go from drug addicts to being sober.
And I can validate that. And I'm not speaking on behalf of your club. I'm speaking on behalf of a brother that you have that I know that had a very serious. And I remember I asked him a question. He said, Cass, I've been sober 2 years now. I mean, everything. And I remember handing him drinks a while back. He goes, no, I don't drink, smoke, weed, nothing. And I said, what made you clear that up? He goes, because I was about to pawn my motorcycle. I was about to lose my colors.
That's right.
And those colors meant more to him. If, do you have kids?
Yes, I do.
Do you have a son?
I have 3 sons.
If one of your sons said he wanted to come over and be a Mongol,
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
because why?
Because I believe it would steer him in the right way.
And that goes to one of the strongest things you said. You're not a gang.
No, we're not.
You know, as ex-street dudes, we know our children will usually stumble into that because of what we're hiding from them. He sees your motorcycle. He sees where you're going. He knows what runs you're going on. And he sees it as a trip. Now, you guys, and I know we can't go too deep into it, you guys have dealt with a lot of law enforcement issues and probably harder than anybody. And I see you knocking down all of them. What keeps your strength up to not let law enforcement take things where they would like to?
Well, on our portion of it, we try to stay positive when it comes to something with law enforcement. So the only way you're going to be able to counterdict anything that they're saying is by showing the community who we are and what we are. We do a lot of things not because we want the world to see this, oh, look what we're doing. We do it because it comes out of our heart.
Right.
You know, I had a brother who went down to Washington, D. right here, and was actually giving canned goods to the homeless on the side right before Thanksgiving and Christmas. And these are some of the things that come out of our heart. And we don't do it to draw attention to say, look, we're not bad guys or anything like that. A lot of people see us, we come into the stores or anything like that, and they're like, oh my God, you know, who's these guys, you know, watch out. But then when we're saying thank you, please, you know, they see something different. Once they get to know us, we're no different than whoever they sleep with and wake up in the morning or anyone else in their family.
Now, we know there's some pin pushing, I won't use that last word, but that wants to go, yeah, but what about this and what about that? And, you know, I'll give you an example. I went up to a law enforcement motorcycle club guy, and he had a state rocker on. And I said, hey, man, you know, did you prospect for that? He said, yeah. I said, do you realize that every time they want to shut us down, the first thing you want to do is take our rockers? Well, the whole moral to this short-ass story, he was sitting there drinking at a bar. Now, if you're leaving just the bar, nobody saw you drinking or anything. I've watched this guy sitting there getting shit-faced. He had to have had good 4 big, tall beers. Why is he not? Why is that motorcycle law enforcement guy not looked at the same way as you?
Because he carries a badge.
Period.
That's it. And he can.
Do you know how stern that answer is? Because he can. Why shouldn't you be able to just go have a nice dinner and not get pulled over and it looks like a dog walk? You know that scenario. We can't because why? They had to have gotten it from somewhere.
Because they stereotype us.
Right.
And at the same time that they're doing stereotyping, they're also doing discrimination towards us. And they're violating our rights as well.
Now, one of your guys, you know, we police our guys. One of your guys is not doing the right thing. Do you guys deal with him?
Absolutely.
Because that one can fuck it up for very many.
Absolutely.
And I'm not alluding to that at all, but I'm saying it's, you know, it's bad cops, there's bad people. You know, the worst misconception. Actually, let me twist the question. Let's say a kid decides he wants a gangbang. Is he any different than a motorcycle club member? I've never asked that question until right now.
I'm going to say it depends on what that kid's mentality is. You know, for us, it's different. Like for my kids, I would rather them be a part of a 1% club than be a part of a gang.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Right.
Because at that point in time, I know that the people that are surrounding him are going to actually give him the guidance that he needs. to move forward in life.
Right.
Not one of us here drag brothers down, because then why would we be calling it a brotherhood if we're dragging them down?
Right. Now that's a perfect segue to your brother that's sitting here. Would you say that's kind of the perception that had you come around?
Yeah. So I never came from a neighborhood gang.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by my parents who put me in a white neighborhood.
Right.
And riding motorcycles all my life. I got of age. I found a brother in the gym. He turned me on to this, and I never looked back. They never judged me because I wasn't in a gang.
Right.
You know.
Now, did you have a perception that they were a gang at first?
At first, yeah.
And then you realized
It wasn't like that at all. At all. I know I can call them my brothers at any time. They're like family.
right.
Oh yeah.
If there was one thing you could say that keeps you in this family today, what would it be?
Loyalty.
Simple and plain.
We are loyal.
We are extremely loyal.
And it's funny because we always say, it takes a village. And when we come into this motorcycle world, we do what? We're guests at first. Then we're hang-arounds. Then we're prospects. Because we're being raised by, a nation. It's a whole village. And you will all of a sudden have an admiration for a cat you've only known 2 weeks. Because he's going to do a little bit more for you than maybe the dude that you grew up across the street with.
That's right.
Because you're common goal. Has there ever been a time where you get frustrated where you've ever wanted to leave?
No.
No.
Never.
Has there ever been a time where law enforcement has pushed you where you just go, man, this shit is wearing me out?
No.
Because you knew what you signed up for.
That's right. This is a lifetime commitment.
Right.
This is not a bucket list.
I think I just changed the title to the documentary. Do you remember how you first came around?
Yes, I do.
Can you speak on that?
Oh, I can speak on it. I had my own club
Okay.
that I was running around with a bunch of other friends of mine, which out of those friends, 3 of them are brothers now.
Okay.
So I ran across some brothers here in town that were inquiring about me. So I went and met up with them and had a conversation, and the first thing that came out of their mouth was, you act like us, you're one of us, you should be one of us.
Yeah.
Put some thought into it, went to a couple runs with them, fell in love with the club, and here I am.
Now you just said you fell in love. Explain, we love our children, we love our old ladies, we love a good cooked meal. What makes you love your family so much, this motorcycle family?
Well, I can tell you what, they're there for me at some of the most difficult times in my life. If I'm falling off in whatever way, or if I'm failing in something, there's always something positive that comes out of these brothers. A text in the morning, good morning, brother, how you doing? Hope you're having a positive day. Goes a long way for me. Our family does it as well, but hearing it come from another man,
right,
and feeling that love from another man, it's important. It's important to have.
Do you ever see law enforcement? Let me rephrase that. Are you seeing law enforcement understanding this a little bit more?
I can see that they're understanding it, but there's always those newcomers, you would say, that have to have or show a name for themselves and look at what I'm doing, that don't get it. Some of these older guys that have been around, these older law enforcement guys that have been around, I think that they've gotten it now.
Right.
And they understand, but they don't want to believe it, right?
Right.
So,
Well, and if we don't have any ordinance or laws, there's no paychecks for those
That's
guys.
correct. It's called it.
Right?
That's right.
Stay relevant.
Yeah.
Stay relevant.
You know,
right there.
and I always say if we started with our teachers and paid them a little bit more, you know, you probably won't get wayward people. But then the sad thing with, and again, we're not choir boys. We're alpha males, men.
Yeah.
We ride motorcycles. You know, we like loud and fast things. But do you notice that the ones that last the longest are the ones that just want to go home at night? Right. When the run is done, whenever the music's turned off, the beer bottle's empty, and there's a lot of cats that don't drink. I met a lot of outlaws in my life that don't drink no more, don't smoke, don't do nothing, that just want to go home. Now, your home life, married with kids?
Yep.
And your old lady supports it 1,000%?
Yes. My wife has been with me since the age of 12. And we lived together since we were 14 years old. And we have a 28-year-old son. Has two kids. So we have grandkids as well. So it's a commitment. When I commit to something, I commit to something 100%.
Do you realize what you just said, brother? Like that's not the perception of what they think of us.
No.
14.
Yes. Since 14, she's lived in my house. We've lived together since we were 14.
Because, you know, they assume that we just got a bunch of kids and bullshitting around and you know, my old lady is actually Dizzy's daughter from the Vagos.
Right.
She was raised in this. You know, Terry is like her uncle. And she's the biggest nerd in the world. She's a fitness junkie. But she loves her an outlaw. But she don't want to go to functions. I don't want her at functions. Same thing with your wife?
Same thing, yeah. My wife normally doesn't hit every function.
Right.
And, you know, and that's one of the things that I have to say that I got to respect.
Wow.
That I got to do this. You know, I made that decision. I told her, I said, this is what I want to do. She supported me. And I said to her, this is the only time you have to speak on it. If you don't say your piece now, then
right.
You know, there's really nothing you can say then.
Now to switch gears, and I know, again, there's only so much we could talk about. When it comes to the stuff you guys are dealing with feds and law enforcement and all that, you know, there's always that saying, the less said is the best said.
Correct.
What is the worst thing they're hitting you with that is just bullshit that you could touch on?
That I can touch on?
Or if you need to shift it in any way in the interim of you just wish they'd stop doing.
Well, if I have to say something that they should be stopping and doing is they do a lot of antagonization to us as far as getting us into a position almost like a trap, if you want to call it. You know, they have ways to find ways to get to you. And I'll share a little bit of a story that I can share that's happened to me. I've had them pull up on the side of me in cars, roll their windows down, make it look like they're going to do something to antagonize you, just to see what you would do, or to get you to somehow react to their actions. And it's been always gang unit that does that here in Las Vegas. Now, that hasn't happened in quite some time, at least not for me, my experience. But when I started Sin City, as I broke off to do Sin City, that was the case. 3 years they were on me, harassing me constantly. They would show up in the mornings when I would go to work to the gas stations and harass me. You know, who has time to do something like that?
You just hit something you just mentioned something that's foreign to them. When you're on your way to where?
Work.
Maybe they didn't hear that. When you're on your way to where?
To work.
Not to go do gang bullshit, not to job.
They
think you wear this 24 hours a day.
That is correct.
Just, you know.
Right. So I had one of them ask me, it's like, why do you carry a gun? And I asked him, why do you carry a gun? And he couldn't really answer that question. I said, I'll tell you why I carry a gun. I carry a gun to protect myself and my loved ones.
Legally at that.
Legally, exactly. But they will always find a way to somehow get to you. And the only way that I see that they always find to fuck with you, excuse me, my language, is basically to try to hit your pockets. And the only way they can hit your pockets is by getting you locked up in these bogus fucking trials that they want to get you into, so that you at one point or another get exhausted and give up.
Right. Well, the strongest thing you just said, like, you know, we got hit with the case in San Diego, and this interview ain't about us, but just the scenario that two of the guys are both military.
Correct.
High-ranking military. And they got busted for brass knuckles. Well, they weren't brass knuckles, it was 4 rings.
Right.
Well, it went to the media, went to the news, went to the newspapers, and all the responses, because that's the beauty of the internet, everybody can respond, and it was, well, they must have been doing something.
Right.
Like you said, must be doing something. And in the end, all this young man wanted to do was save his gun rights. But he still got a misdemeanor. Not for the brass knuckles, it was dropped for a throwback whip.
I can tell you that we can kind of relate to that situation as well. We had a brother that basically got arrested for what they call a slingshot, which is considered a weapon, which you can purchase at any store legally.
Right.
You can go anywhere. I mean,
Right.
kids can buy it.
Right.
And he got arrested for what they call a slingshot. And it was basically a chain that did not have a disconnect that was attached to his wallet.
And he had to be arrested,
arrested.
bike impounded.
Yep.
Got to get bailed out.
Yep.
Got to get an attorney.
Yep.
Got to fight the case.
Absolutely.
Is he still a brother?
Yes, he is.
That's the real one then, because a lot of cats will give up.
Yeah. He fought that for over a year.
Now, speaking of fighting, like I said, we can't touch on, is the fight almost over? And only people that understands this question will know what I'm talking about.
I believe it's getting close. I believe a lot of people's perception of what we are is changing now, and you'd be surprised how many people out there are like, why are we wasting taxpayers' money on chasing groups like this when we can stop something like just what happened in Florida?
Right.
If you look at what happened in Florida just recently, I mean, they had this person, someone called upon this, and it still happened.
Yeah.
Innocent lives.
There was 36 times they were called to his house.
Correct. So how do they spend so much time on motorcycle clubs and not spend time on what saving Americans' children?
Right.
You know?
What could other, because again, what people don't realize, it's not that this interview could have never happened. Let me take that back. Us just shooting the shit couldn't have happened.
Right.
Because I'll hit you on any day that ends with Y, like, hey, how you doing?
Yes, sir.
But the fact that I'm in another club, an outlaw club, if you could, with a broad stroke, they always say as a painter, sometimes you could do it with a broad stroke. If you could broad stroke and say to other clubs, what do you wish we all would do together to maybe those law enforcement will stop perceiving things the way they do?
Show the government that we can coexist.
Now, what if that club has their closed-mindedness and they think their wounds are still this, or...
They don't have to be a part of it, but you can still show the government that we can still coexist.
Me and you were talking on the phone the other day, and I said something. I said, there's no motorcycles in prison.
There isn't.
And that ground don't know who's riding on it or falling on it. They want to put motorcycle clubs the same as gangs.
Yeah.
Those guys are that color, it's like a bandana. Those guys are that color, and I think when we all started out, when we started gangbanging, the word CRIP actually stands for something. Actually the C stands for something. Just like how the Black Panthers, and then it took a different direction.
Correct.
When, our club started in '59, you guys have been around for God knows forever. It was never started out to be, but when you get men with machismo, and like I said, the testosterone then it gets bottled into one. If that was never the intention, how can you, let's say you run across one that you don't normally get along, not supposed to get along with, do you just, man, I'm just not going to let that be an issue today?
There's a lot of ways to come across something like this. You know, one of my brothers is a part of the COC club. So we've gone to places where we've been within 2 feet from each other.
Because we're there for a common goal.
Correct. We're there for a common goal, and we're there actually to fight for our rights, to be able to ride our motorcycles freely without being fucked with.
Right.
Literally.
But then we leave the COC, and what do you think falls apart sometime?
I think a lot of the issues that I would say where people fall apart is some of them are not just close-minded, but they're very weak-minded. Because this is a lot bigger fight than anyone thinks. You know, we're fighting for our patch, and we know for a fact that if we lose it, then what is there to stop them from coming after you guys or anyone else at that point?
Now, you guys have never initiated any type of tension. Your club is your club. My club is my club. In your better world, would you like to see everybody in one? Do you think that's plausible, where we could all be in one, rally together, and it's not just a COC? It's, yeah, man, that's him over there. There's us.
I think it's been done before in the past, and I don't see why it couldn't be done again. But obviously, it takes a lot more open-minded individuals to be able to envision something like this, because when it comes down to ultimately, like we spoke before, we're not going to be able to ride our bikes in prison.
No.
So for us, our freedom is on the road.
Right.
Our freedom is hanging out with brothers and being able to express each other.
This question just popped in my head, and I swear on my life, I haven't, again, another one I haven't asked anybody. Why do you need a patch?
That's a really good question. But
It fucked me up as I thought about it.
yeah, it's a good question. I'll tell you what, you don't need a patch. I think to express yourself with other fellow motorcycles, but for me, it's what I found in this club, and this is what I do. This is why I have a patch, because of brothers that come together. I can find the same thing, but it's not going to be the same when you have that type of unity, and you have men come together as one and actually have the same common goals as you do at the same time, always enjoying and expressing themselves on the road. We bond. When we go on rides, we bond. And we bond every time. The bond's bigger. Every time you go to a national run or something, your bond just gets bigger and bigger with these brothers. So why do I have a patch? Because I believe in it, and I believe in what it stands for. And when they tell me this is brotherhood, it's exactly what it is. It's brotherhood.
Would you say the same?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because, you know, the military, why not just consider the military all just one military?
Yeah.
They all have a
Different branches.
different branch, and they're really proud of it.
Yeah.
I know my dad was 182nd Airborne. He was proud of it. When you get with his brother-in-law, 101st, that's a rivalry.
Right.
But they all have the same common bond.
My dad was airborne also. Do you remember listening to the same story every time? And you had to act amused because you had your friends there now. He's telling the story. But it was something watching your dad tell the story.
I can say this. My dad, when he was in the military, he did what he had to do, and he never talked about it.
Oh, really?
He was very quiet about it. Very, very quiet. It was personal.
There
was a bond that it's hard to explain, like the bond I have with this brother and my other brothers.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a special bond between
99% of the people don't get it. They don't get it.
You just hit the nail on the head. 99. People forget that, you know, the first time I was made of the word 1%er, it was a guy from one of the oldest motorcycle clubs in the world, Pasadena Motorcycle Club. They've been around since 1912. And the guy said, and they're not a 1% club, but he made this statement, and it went for years. He goes, I'm just 1% away from giving 0 fucks. So when I came up with the title, people thought that I made that up. I'm like, no, that came from somewhere. the guy said, it was in a book, and it was like, man, I told the guy I was 1% away from getting 0 fucks, and we ain't got much space for error. That's what, you know, as I was riding here, I'm one guy coming to meet my brother, and I'm checking in hey, I'm at Prim. Hey, and it was this, as I'm riding with my other brother, it was this, it was this joy that I was coming. I fucking hate Vegas. I hate Vegas, but it was the fact that I was coming to see you.
Yeah, it's, you know what, this is always going to be an extension of my family.
Right.
I mean, regardless, I feel comfortable. I let my kids around my brothers. My brothers come to my house. I never have to feel like I have to watch, you know, what my brothers are doing around my kids. You know, they'll be there for them just as much as I will. And when I'm not here, they're there to watch them.
Right.
And if, you know, that time ever comes where I don't exist in this world anymore, I feel comfortable that there will be brothers that are going to stay behind to help guide my kids to be better men or grow up to be good women.
Yeah.
In life.
So, these are I usually hit 4. These are my strong 3. Do you see yourself ever stop riding a motorcycle?
No.
Do you see yourself ever leaving that family that you're in?
No.
Can you ever truly wish? It's redundant, I'm asking it, but I'm asking it to solidify it. You can speak for yourself or your nation. Would you love to see peace among all of us?
I will speak for myself. It would be a great thing to see something like that. For my nation, I can't speak because I can't speak for other brothers and their opinions that they have, but I can share my opinion with it. You know, my opinion on it is this, is if you can respect me, I will respect you. If you show me that there is no foul farm, I'm good. But we've been there before, done it, and it's, for whatever reasons, have changed, and call it whatever you want to call it. It is what it is, but there's really nothing we can do but move forward.
Right.
You know, I see myself as more on a defense than an offense. That's just me. That's just how I carry myself. And, you know, would peace be good? Sure, why not?
And when I asked it, it wasn't about a kumbaya or let's all, you know, I always say, you know, they make, oh man, we have issues with that club. I say, well, if that man's temperature is okay and my temperature is okay, he may go on about his day. But if his temperature is a little off, then, so is that kind of like, look, I'd rather just go on about my day. But
for me, it's more like, you know, I go about my day. I don't go out of my way for anything in this world. So when it comes down to something like that, if I feel like I am in somewhat in danger or something, then that's a different story.
You know,
I have the right to defend myself, right? But when it comes to, you know, between clubs and beef between clubs, I mean, most of the times, usually you can either talk your way out of it or, you know, work something out, you know.
But as men, it's gonna go where it's gonna go.
As men, it's gonna go, and it's gonna go where it goes. That's correct. There's no difference than if you were, you know, the difference between us and the 99% of people is that if I was wearing something with 10 other individuals, doesn't even have to be a club.
Right.
If I was wearing the same jersey with 10 other individuals and we got in a bar fight, it might not go nowhere.
Right.
But just because of what I'm wearing, you know, I can get into all kinds of stupid law enforcement. I'm the bad guy. Even though I was the one trying to defuse the situation or something like that. You know, before I joined this club, I've been in many bar fights. Not once have I ever been arrested.
Right.
Not once.
Wow.
So for me, you know, I believe that the way law enforcement approaches this is, you know, it's wrong because you're stereotyping someone.
Well, they are doing the broad stroke.
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
Now to end this, you're talking to your regular Johnny civilian. How can they help? Is there a site they can go to? Is there something?
Absolutely. There's a lot of we have some petitions that are coming up, that some bills that we're trying to pass, for anti-profiling.
Okay.
This is going to help us and everyone else, even people that are independent riders or just regular motorcycle enthusiast people that want to just come out and hang out with us, and you'd be surprised how they get harassed. They get pulled over.
Yeah.
I invited a couple friends from work to come out and just have some beers with us or something. They're motorcycle riders themselves. They're not looking to join no club, nothing. And we leave the bar, they get pulled over.
Yeah, because they're guilty by association.
Correct.
Where there is no guilt.
Right.
You know, I went to one of your toy runs and we all got pulled over.
Right.
And because again, it's the perception, well, you must. And the funny thing is, when they did the tally, it was at LA Motorcycle.
Correct.
At the end, not one gun was found on your club or my club, it was actually some guns were found on some civilian dudes that thought they needed them.
Right, because they were at this function.
But the report said guns found.
Right.
Broad stroke.
Correct. Exactly.
Is there a site or anything they can go to, or just keep up to date on what's
if
going on?
If they go onto the website for the CLC,
Okay.
there is a site there. There's actually there's a petition they can sign. They can say, hey, yes, I'm a motorcycle rider. I want to support this bill. This is right now being presented to, basically it's going to go to the state, but they have a Republican and a Democrat right now that are both wanting to push the bill at this point in time.
Oh, wow.
So
against us? Or for us?
No, for us. This is for us.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it took about 3 weeks, and they both want to do it. They see this as something. Now, in their behalfs, they might be looking at it as like, hey, I win votes. Well, yes, there's thousands of motorcycle riders throughout the nation. But I think at the same time, they're not looking at it as like, hey, I'm winning votes. I think they're looking at it more like, enough is enough. We've been hearing this a lot, and it's time to take it and push it through Congress.
Right. Well, when I spoke to Double D said, if we don't get behind you guys, they didn't say nobody else.
Yeah.
They said, if we don't get behind you guys because the spotlight's on you, we're all fucked.
Yeah, it's. I think we've been preaching it to a lot of different clubs and say, hey, this will be a good thing for you guys to come on board and look at it. Come together as bikers and win this. We've been doing it for 9 years now, so it's been very exhausting, very costly.
And you'd love to just ride a bike.
That's right. And every one of our brothers here, we all believe in it. We believe in trying to get through this, and sure as hell we don't want to give up our patch. Absolutely. Not just because it's law enforcement, because it's just not right. It's they are pushing onto our rights, our constitutional rights that we have, and that's not right.
Well, and the strongest thing you said before we cap this off, when he questioned you about your gun, it's always easy for them to ask a dumb question.
Correct.
And when they get a smart answer, it only frustrates them.
Yes.
And you legally went about getting your rights. I have my rights. I just got my rights back. And within literally 24 hours, I was pulled over by a task force.
Right.
And he said, well, if this was California, I said, it's not. We're in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
In California, I wouldn't be telling you I have a weapon because I wouldn't be having one.
Right.
But I'm legally telling you I have one. So let's not let it go any further. That's the same respect you want.
Correct. It's if these guys were more educated in how to come and approach anyone, it doesn't matter who, just any general citizen of the United States. If they came and approach them a certain way, and they want people to respect them, you have to be able to give them respect. Just because you have a badge does not make you a person for you to feel that you are, on top of us in any way, form, or shape. We're just men just like you, or it could be a woman and a female cop. I've never had any issues with female cops for whatever reason, but usually it's been male cops, and they tend to usually want to push buttons. It's like, you're pulling me over to give me a ticket.
Give me the ticket.
Give me the ticket and let me go.
Right.
There's no reason for you to ask me about my mother, my father, my sons, my club. and anything else.
And you were not pulling me over because of anything that you just heard of some liquor store or this and that.
Correct.
You have no rights to ask me if I
That's
have
correct.
guns in my bag or do I have drugs.
Right.
You can give me one. And sadly, they passed that law that says for the time that it takes an officer
To
to
detain.
search, well, they find other ways.
Yes, they find
Yeah.
other ways to detain you. They use everything that they can within the law and outside the law
Beyond.
to actually, detain you. Every little possible way that you can. They get upset when you film them.
Right.
But
They're filming us.
Therefore, they film us.
Right.
And it's just like I got pulled over one time by a highway patrol, or actually it was a state trooper here in Nevada. And there was 3 cars, and I was in the middle between 2 cars, and he signaled me out. And I got pulled over, and I was going to go to the desert to go shooting, do some target practice. So I had rifles, I had handguns, I had ammo. He pulled me over. The first thing he asked me is registration, the license. You transporting any drugs? I'm like, transporting? Is this your vehicle? I'm like, you have my registration and you have my insurance card. They both match. It shows, is this your company car? I'm like, what the fuck? Where's this going to, So I told them, I said, you want to know why you're in the situation that you're in? I said, because you're pissed off that someone like me has a truck like this and you can't afford it. I said, I pay your bills. I pay taxes, and I don't pay taxes for you to be able to harass me. I pay taxes for you to do your job, which is to keep order. And I don't feel like I'm breaking any kind of order here just because I was driving and you decided to single me out and said I was speeding.
Right.
But now you're going into wanting to take my guns,
Right.
want to arrest me. For what? What did I do?
How did it end?
His sergeant came, and his sergeant apologized, which I took it. I said, okay, no problem. I said, but someone needs to educate this young man and show him that because he has a badge and because I look Hispanic, he can't judge me. And because I'm driving a $70,000 truck doesn't mean that I can't afford it,
Right.
or it's my company vehicle. So I took it very offensive, and I had to basically tell him, hey, you know what? Sorry that you're making $35,000 a year.
Right. But instead of getting irate, like a grown-ass man, somebody's husband, somebody's father,
Right.
somebody's brother, you handled it like a man. And that probably frustrated him more because they want to see the bad
Well,
side
they
of
want
us.
to see the bad side.
Right. And that's probably a message you can give to a lot of bikers that don't understand. If you give them exactly what they want, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
If you give them what, when I spoke to this officer, I said, I'm never going to like you. I don't have to like you. As a man, I may love you to death. But the fact that you feel you have an authority on me, I'm never going to sugarcoat it. I will never like you because of your position.
That's correct.
I don't eat at fucking McDonald's, and I don't want to go like the manager at McDonald's. I don't like law enforcement. I like men. If he's a respectable man, you want the same thing. Now, I get your job, but the moment we take it outside of that, I always say I have this imaginary Palm Pilot. You're not on it today. You're nowhere on my imaginary Palm Pilot. He just took your rights away as a man, as a father, that you had your legal guns going to, but you handled it like a man, and bet you wouldn't enjoy the day of shooting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's, I think that as far as law enforcement goes, they need to be educating their people, and, we don't judge them like they judge us, right? They have a bad apple or something, which everyone can have in any kind of group,
Right.
or any kind of brotherhood, or you can have a frat fraternity, you can have whatever you want to call, car club, or whatever it might be. You always have your bad apples, okay? And just because there's one bad cop, does that mean that the whole entire law enforcement is that way? Probably not. But how come they don't do that the same to themselves?
Right.
Why aren't they judging themselves the same way they judge other people?
Well, I think it's things like this and mature cats like you guys that are saying, look, y'all got this all wrong. Do your job. We're living our life. This isn't a job. This is our life. This ain't a lifestyle. This is our life.
That's right.
Being a Mongol is your life.
That is my life.
Being what is my life. Being a cop, that's your job.
Yeah.
when you take it outside of that, I'm going to question it.
That's correct.
Well, brother, it's, and I mean that, we always say not every brother's your brother, but you always treated me amazing. And any last, before we shut this down, anything?
No, I just want to say, thanks for taking us into consideration and to, coming together here and speaking a little bit about what we go through as being in a 1% club. And at the same time, hopefully this video educates not just law enforcement, but everyone in generally, and let them know what we're about.
Right.
We're not individuals that are out to be badasses. We're not out there freaking raping women.
Right.
We're not the ones shooting out of casinos into a crowd. We're not going into, schools and
right.
shooting up kids or anything like that. So why don't they use the resources that they have,
right.
that they spend on us,
Right.
and focus it on protecting everyone else, the
right.
citizens of the United States. Instead of let us be us. We're gonna do what we do. We're gonna ride motorcycles. We're gonna drink, and we're gonna party, and that's what we do.
Right.
We have fun with our brothers, and we do what we do. But as far as law enforcement goes, they really need to focus themselves in different areas and really try firing, terrorism somewhere else.
Right.
Because we're not terrorists.
Right.
They call us domestic terrorists.
Right.
And I don't see myself as a domestic terrorist.
No. When we leave here, we ain't thinking about, the only thing we gonna kill is maybe the bathroom after the food we ate.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean?
Pretty much. That's about it.
Well, brother,
But I want to say, thank you for having us.
if there's a top of the
put this
list,
together.
this was beyond the top.
So-
And this will, people don't realize this will break a lot of stereotypes also, that you didn't have to do this. Your platform is way bigger, and you're doing something. When this comes out, and it's funny, it's distributed by Universal, and these are the big wigs that are like, oh, Cass is doing this about outlaw bikers. And I think they think I'm going to deliver something with shootings, and
Right.
every interview has been about a guy with a job, a father, how we came together, and why do we want nothing to do with just leave us alone. You know what I mean? We just want to just be left alone. And having this was the top of the cake. So thank you, fellas, very much. And as we always say, through and through, we see you on a few.
That's right.